In this episode, we're bringing our discussion of friendship to a close, but by way of reflecting on our reflections. I know, meta. What we hope to do is offer some takeaways and leave our listeners with even more curiosity and questions to consider on From What We Gathered with Dani Nelson and Kylie Shahar. In the land of teeter totters, I prefer a slide. Turbulent or gentle waters, let's go for a ride. Hi, Dani.
Hi, Kylie.
Okay, so my question for you today is, are there any topics related to friendship that in this series, given the philosophers we've looked at, we just haven't covered? Anything that's missing?
There is something missing that we definitely know is a huge part of friendship, but just couldn't find the right philosopher or the right context to kind of add it to the conversation. And that's how difficult friendship can be sometimes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the discussion that we've had around friendship has been in this kind of bubble of ideal.
Yeah, totally.
Go find your intellectual equal.
Yep.
Like, find comfort in being friends with other women.
Yeah. Maybe your best friend can turn into your marriage partner.
Yeah, we live in a time when friendships through the internet can be just as valuable as people that you grew up with. Like,
yeah.
These are all ideas that, kind of preserve and look at and acknowledge when you find optimal times in your friendship.
Right.
Unfortunately, you may be aware,
Yeah.
we don't live in this bubble of ideal situations.
Right. Life ain't perfect.
Life isn't perfect. And so there's an aspect of friendship, especially any friendship that goes on for any amount of time, unless the friendship came from trauma bonding.
Right.
Which is
Plenty
also,
do.
It sometimes does.
Yeah.
That there are oftentimes within friendships where friendship is very messy.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about friendship, like you being in an argument with your friend. I'm talking about when your friend isn't doing well.
Yeah. And not just, difficult times or like having trouble in school or something.
I have
like
a
that.
flat tire.
Right.
Not those kinds of troubles,
Right.
which we did talk about.
We did touch on those.
But like a downward spiral.
Right. Yes. So, I mean, mental health catastrophes, substance abuse issues,
divorces as you get older, especially deaths in the family, major injuries,
right,
that are like life-changing injuries. And when you've been friends with someone for a long time, sometimes with these kind of downward spiral situations, there gets to a point with the friendship where you're kind of deciding, how much do I have to give?
Exactly.
Like, where is the line for me?
Right.
And like, what is possible for that? Whether it's like care, giving direct care, whether it's supplementing their child care, in the case of an injury, like it might be financial assistance.
Right.
Like there are all these kinds of things that you might look at that are, I don't know, sort of a standard burden that you're willing to take on for friendship. But at some point there's a boundary that you have to, for your own health.
Yeah. Right.
Mental health, all those things, especially addiction issues and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Right. Like we can sort of wear ourselves out too thin. It's like that, sort of put your oxygen mask on before helping others, right? If you're no longer receiving oxygen, you simply can't help other people. But it's this really fine line of figuring out how best to show up for these friends who are, through no fault of their own, or even if it is their fault, right, are dealing with really difficult situations, downward spirals that require support, but that support can sometimes run you really, on an empty tank. And that's not good neither for yourself nor for your ability to help your friend.
Exactly. To be a good friend and to be there, because as you may be now contributing to this downward spiral as you're being exhausted. And so we know that this is a huge part of friendship that we never touched on in this series.
Yeah.
But that we couldn't find the right philosopher or philosophy. And that may be because this falls more into maybe like psychology or friendship in another way where there hasn't been anyone who's looked at this sort of, or we just didn't know.
Right. That's entirely possible.
So
and if there is something out there, we certainly want to know about it.
Absolutely. We're very curious. Yeah. We want it to happen. But we also want to acknowledge that, like, we don't see this series as being exhaustive in any way.
Exactly.
This is something that, as we're like putting it together, that we're looking for things that are enriching for us as individuals, that we think kind of represents this like long span.
Right.
Of what friendship has looked like over the ages, over the millennia.
Yeah.
Specifically coming from a philosophy standpoint.
Right.
Like that's the hope of kind of looking at all of this. And I'm sure there's lots of other things to be said about friendship. In fact, there's entire podcasts that are just about friendship and discussing friendship. But we think that it's important to say this. It's important to say, like, hey, when you look at all these things, but the bigger hope is that, by acknowledging these ideas within philosophy and by looking at your friendships in a kind of an analytical way, you might have more tools to use within these circumstances.
Absolutely.
Where you're like, oh, I do have a little bit more for this friend because they're so valuable to me.
Yeah. Right.
For a variety of ways. Or
like thinking about Aristotle's 3 species of friendship, right? Like you could go down a very deep theoretical path, or you could take it for a more practical, useful tool and think like, okay, if I understand the nature of my friendships, I can just be better at investing time, but also managing my expectations, what I expect from certain friends, right? And when we say expect, you mean like things like support and being there for my friend, or expecting my friends to be there for me in various capacities. Like it's like knowing better, right? Having a better understanding of these things can help you in really practical ways, and can, also lend you these tools for, thinking about the extent to which we depend in bad ways on our friendship, and what can the Stoics teach us about how to manage or navigate or counterbalance that.
Yeah. So this is something too, I'm glad that you brought up Stoicism. Yeah. So my original, not my very original interest in philosophy, but my more recent interest in philosophy and ethics has been through Stoicism. And part of that is because it's a practice. Like the teaching of the Middle Stoics, it was that, hey, this isn't just something that's supposed to be in a classroom. This is something that you take out into the world and actually are doing. And so within that, like part of what they teach that I wanted to think about more and kind of discuss as a strategy that you might use for when you are also following in that, is that friendship is an opportunity for you to not just exercise virtue, or like to just be in communion with other virtuous people, where like, yeah, that's excellent. There's joy in that. There's like an enjoyment of like learning together or whatever. But it's also a measurement that you should be putting yourself up against. And, Seneca has this really beautiful letter. He has a collection of letters to Lucilius that is a lot of kind of partially what we know about Seneca's writings. And in that kind of effort of talking about kindred spirits and this measuring yourself up to the potential of not only who you are as a person and how you can be more virtuous, but also for you to be that pillar of virtue, right? Like, so there are often times in action where this could look like, oh man, I'm like really exhausted of taking meals to my friend's house. But like, you look at your friendship as a whole and you like dig in and think like, oh, but would they give up on me?
Right.
Would they stop bringing me meals, or whatever? I'm imagining this as a, like, someone's in a hardship where, you know, that could be anything from depression.
Yeah.
And trust me, guys, if you don't know, if you have friends that suffer from depression and they're in a spiral, not making them think about food is an excellent way to show them care.
Yeah.
Just so you know, like, out there. But this is something that I think is really excellent in this, and also a way to demonstrate that when we talked about Stoicism, that's not all there is to say about Stoicism and friendship.
Absolutely.
And that all of these different philosophers that we've introduced you to and their ideas, anytime that you feel an attraction towards those ideas, a curiosity about their ideas, there are writings out there that bring you a depth of this. We're just trying to give you these little nuggets that might make you identify ideas that could possibly take you into, I don't know, just further into philosophy or further into exploring the dynamics of what that thing is that you're trying to dwell in or deal with.
Right.
And so this goes back to curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is, I have, I think, a lot to say in this episode. I don't know why you guys have to listen to me talk the whole time.
No, I mean, like, I think it's right. Like, just to add on to this, to echo this, like, what we envision, what this podcast is doing. So here's our reflections on what we're doing. This is like some of this meta point, or like, you know, sort of thinking about our thinking here is like, what we want to do is like give like a grain of an idea, a fleck, if you will, a fleck of an idea, which does not introduce the listener to the whole of the idea, let alone the whole person who espouses or avows any of these ideas, but just a little grain, and one that is especially, you might think, relevant to our lives in a way that also sort of like breaks down the barriers of thinking about what philosophy is up to, because I think it is often left with this sort of reputation that it's kind of like just mere ponderings and kind of abstract thinking, and it sort of never really reaches the ground, and there's no right answers, and we're all just thinking, and you can just kind of say whatever you want. It's like, that's, you know, like, if you have that idea of philosophy, you're wrong.
Yeah. Well, and also like it's all theory. People are like, so there never is a final answer. Well, that's correct. There never is a final answer. Society is constantly in this like change of ways, and even with ancient philosophy that's still popular now, and a lot of this deals with, you know, we talked about communitarianism. Like, that was a difficult concept to maybe perceive in times of monarchy and stuff, because everything was sort of top down. Mm-hmm. Not this sort of web that now is more easily, even though it applies to those past times, once you look back on it, conceptually, it couldn't exist without kind of this like view of being an individual in a different way that's not attached to ownership, you know, essentially, of people. And so one of those things with the, you know, within this, when we're talking about curiosity and things, there's this story that I go back to when I think about curiosity in my mind, that really early in my life really influenced the way that I look at personal education. And so the little story goes like, there's this little baby that's crawling around underneath a tree, and looks up in the tree, and there's all this beautiful ripe fruit up in the tree. And it's so amazed by it. It just stares at it. It's really excited about it. It's so excited about it that it like teaches itself how to stand. The baby teaches itself how to stand and reach its arm up and balance, but it can't reach the fruit. Like, the fruit is out of reach. And so it goes about its life and comes back and like keeps checking as it's growing and turning into a kid. But then as it's also growing as a kid, people are feeding it lots of different kinds of fruit, lots of meat and cheese and some milk. And, you know, it has unlimited availability of food to it. And then by the time that it goes back to the tree and is tall enough to easily get the fruit is no longer interested in the fruit.
Right.
Doesn't want the fruit, doesn't see that the fruit is beautiful anymore. It's just another tree that's out in the forest. And this little story is about the way that people kind of look at information. When you're a little baby and you're learning, every day is like this crazy learning bonanza, as a child. And think about how many when children ask you questions, they have unlimited questions.
Absolutely.
They're so curious.
Yes.
And what happens and this story comes from a book that's about the public education system that's called the Teenage Liberation Handbook, How to Quit School and Get a Real Life and Education. And this is the beginning of the book, just so you guys know.
A good opening story.
And so it feeds back into that idea that we've been put through this system that trains us what we're supposed to know. Mm-hmm. Like this system's like, well, a bunch of people have decided that this is the things to know about this subject, and that's what you should know. And if you know this and you're tested on it, then
you have knowledge. You have an education.
You've been educated,
right? Yeah.
Yep. You have knowledge,
right?
But this is one of the things we talked about with Montaigne is you don't necessarily have intellect, which is different. It's like there's knowing that a thing exists, and then there's knowing the thing, which is its whole other thing. And this natural curiosity that we all have as humans, it's so easy to be distracted now. It's so easy to become uncurious because we are just fed. We are inundated with information at such a high level that we forget that there is like a slowing down to like actually learn a thing and to like speculate over it, to like have your own ponderings, to look at the simple things in your life like friendship, which it is one of the richest experiences, in my opinion. In existence. Epictetus disagree. It's one of the most necessary and richest experience in the human like lifetime. And we spend very little time in consideration of its value.
Right.
Not to say that we don't put effort into it or suck the life out of it, as per our earlier conversation at times, or we have the ups and downs, the roller coaster of it, the joys of it, all those things. But we don't often just sit around and think like, what's its value? Or how am I participating in it?
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like, like you might think the extent to which you're, so-called educated about friendship is like a very early, right, when we're very young, early kind of process of socialization where like you learn things like we don't hit our friends and we share with our friends and we're kind to our friends and we treat our friends the way we wish to be treated, right? And you sort of learn these kinds of, you might think, rules or social mores, right? A kind of little code of how to behave or treat your friend, but we never really sit down to think about what is a friend, what is the nature of friendship, or right, all of these other dimensions to it which add to your experience of it as deeply important and satisfying this kind of element of our very social nature. Which is also right. Then you might think, just to tie it back to this really lovely sort of story that you just told of this curiosity that kind of like is almost torn away from you the more you are exposed to things in the world, because this kind of, we're sort of also socialized to think that knowledge or knowledge production is like receiving things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Get knowledge from somebody else who has knowledge, and that's maybe one kind of knowledge. But it's not certainly the whole of it. And if you're thinking about someone like Aristotle, who, and this is a way in which like he and all the ancients, right, really preached not just thinking for the sake of thinking, but thinking to put things into activity and practice, right? This idea of practical wisdom, which is like the difference between, on the one hand, just acquiring a bunch of knowledge of facts, right? That's one kind of knowledge. You can just like know things.
Absolutely.
You can know facts about friendship. You can know facts about like how to drive, right? You can read a manual, How to Drive for Dummies. You know those great for dummies books?
Oh my God, yeah. I am the dummy that those are.
I am the target audience.
Yeah.
You can read a book about how to drive. You can read a book about friendship. You can read a book about anything and know a bunch of the facts that it tells you. But that's not really like wisdom. That's not like knowledge, capital K, right?
Right.
To get that, right, you have to, on the other hand, be in the world and acquire, you know, experiences and maybe mess up a lot also.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But and this goes back to this Stoic practice.
Exactly. And so this is where I'm thinking like, right, so I can read the manual on like how to drive. I don't all of a sudden know how to drive without actually having ever got behind the wheel. Right. And so, just like the Stoics are thinking like, it's not just enough to just sit there and think.
Yeah. It's not enough to just agree with your friend. Yeah. Like that, that courage is needed to do. You need to go with your friend and then exercise that courage or that wisdom. And that might look like, today that might look like a lot of things, but an easy way to say that is like, politics and things like that. If you have something to say about that and you have a way in your local community to kind of participate in those things, that's an opportunity for your friendship to grow in this kind of way that is intermixing with virtue, right? So, and it's hard to use that because I think that that's so controversial right now to talk about like what that looks like to be activating those things, but it also can be acts of kindness. Like, when you look at, let's just say in the South, literacy is a huge problem. Like if you're like, I see that literacy is a problem. Mm-hmm. There's something about leaving your house, volunteerism, and that when I talked earlier about you're measuring yourself against what your friend should also be measuring against you, is hopefully you're creating this better world. Like that's what Stoicism is. You're creating this better world or participating in the better world, because there's a whole thing with predestination. You're participating in the better world by being the example and taking your friends out to do those things, right? To go volunteer to do the thing. Going to, I don't know, join. Now I'm like, it's easy to talk about battles before. Now I'm like, I don't know, you're going to join the military? Like, scared for you. But, there's being at a dog rescue, don't just sit around and be like, oh, how sad that that's a stray dog.
Right.
Be the people, the person and the friends. Be the people who go and are like, oh, I help at the shelter. I help foster. Those are all opportunities for us to put these higher ideals into action, because it's so easy to spend your whole time scrolling every night.
Right.
But when you reevaluate friendship and things like that, hopefully you're like, oh, there's so many opportunities that I'm not taking to be with my friends or be with society or to be helpful or to learn something, like all of these things that aren't just scrolling.
Right. And like, I mean, I so agree with you, right? I mean, especially in an age in which it is so easy to be so disconnected from society, because we have all of these avenues to somehow feign the idea of connection with others, right? I'm not saying that it's totally bad, right?
Yeah. But there's good stuff about it. Yep.
Absolutely. And so like one way, I feel like one way to do this is to envision yourself as a friend to the community, right? That it's like, it's not just like me, a drop in the bucket, right? But like, of my community, and kind of like, well, what difference will I make? Well, it's really not about, whether or not you're going to solve the overpopulation of the cats in this area by, doing a trap, neuter, release. Like, it's not about,
but you could,
but if a lot of us did it, we might be able to, but like, kind of envisioning your relationship, if we're now coming back to the communitarian side of things, envisioning like the way that you see your relationship to your community as one of friendship, fellowship, right? Like,
right.
We're all sort of, and that's what a community is made up of, right? Is of individuals, right? This sort of abstract idea of a group or a community of people is, right? Nothing, I don't know, nothing more than the sum of its parts. I'm not sure, but
it is. And some of those parts are difficult. And some of those parts are so enriching that you could never imagine the value you get from it.
Yeah.
Without you have to first put yourself into the situation where you could potentially experience these things. And I do like too, when another point we kind of wanted to talk about when we talk about community is when we talk about all of this, our hope is that as the listener, that you are a part of this conversation.
Absolutely.
Part of the reason that we're doing this, and we look at all of these philosophers, a huge part of, I brought up Seneca's letters. Mm-hmm. We talked about Wollstonecraft's letters in our episode with her. We talked about, that's how her and Godwin stayed in touch, just in case you haven't listened to that episode. There's this whole like letter writing in the past and now even just like communication through the web and stuff like that is this kind of like valuing distance. Like distance doesn't keep you from your friends.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep you from having these developed conversations. We don't have to be in the same room to expound on these ideas and to participate in these ideas. And podcasting is just another form and another way for us to hopefully, make new friends and keep the old. I think is
no, absolutely. And it's fun to think about, our new medium, right? Email. Well, okay. That's not that new.
For boomers.
In the span of human history are relatively new.
It's so new.
Email, social media, podcasting, right? It's fun to think about the ways in which our ability to communicate across great distances has transformed, but it's also so fun to think about how in the 17th and 18th century, I just picked that out because
that's your love. That's your time of love. I get to talk about stoicism. You're exactly. Like, can we please talk about enlightenment thinkers? Thank you so much.
And even with the ancients, right? And the Hellenistic, right? Like a lot of philosophical discourse took place through letter writing, through correspondences. Of course, a great deal of it also happened verbally and in person. We just don't have any records of that.
For the ancients, Socrates thought writing was going to ruin humanity. He did not like writing things down.
I can't say that he's wrong. Look at where we're at.
We have to rewind all the way back to Socrates when he was like, don't be writing things down. It's about verbal.
Although if I don't write anything down, I won't remember anything. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe he thought your hippocampus will start to shrink over time and we'll just have no memory.
Our brain is getting smoother and smoother. Yeah. I heard from a neurologist.
Is that really true?
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
I know. Because you don't have to learn anything. You can just ask.
So, oh my gosh. So learn things, people. Okay. So that we can make more ridges in our brains.
Yeah. We need more. We need our brain. Well, we don't know what'll happen when it gets smoothed. And actually we're not scientists, so we have no idea.
We're just, we're totally not warranted in saying anything about this.
These are broad speculations we gathered to repeat to you for no reason.
This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Except for I really can't remember anything. But now I remember where I was going. And it is that letter writing has been such an important medium for, working out philosophical ideas. And it's, once again, just one manifestation of what it means to be like in community or in in the pursuit of knowledge in community. Maybe if it's just one other person, right? Yep. That's your correspondent.
And the receiver, the correspondent of these, that's the thing. Without having someone who is of the same mind or similar mind or opposing mind, in the case sometimes of Mary Wollstonecraft, it's in opposition. Without having those kinds of relationships with people, there is no one to write the letter to. Right. There is no one to thoughtfully think through these ideas or to respond in positive or negative ways around those thoughts that help expound those and turn those into real philosophical, broader kind of implications. And this, the over the millennia and thinking about this, one thing I want you guys to take away from friendship, and also the way that we're going to take on other subjects like this, is that we don't think about friendship very much, like on a daily basis, like I was saying. But hopefully you see in this discussion, society, we can look back and say, oh, the wheel changed humanity. Oh, the printing press changed humanity.
The toaster.
The toaster. The toaster. So helpful. I didn't know that there was a toaster problem. But apparently it changed humanity. And, we look at those things because we can see like really broad changes in, I was going to say the cotton gin, but that toaster straight to there as far as inventions go. The car, we see these things change humanity, but hopefully you see in these episodes when we're talking about all these different philosophers and all these things, the way that a simple concept like friendship, that is an everyday thing, that is an experience in almost every single person's life, hopefully every person, but I'm sure that sadly there are people who've never experienced it. It does morph and change. Yeah. Like there is a human history that has shifted in our ethics and society and things like that, that when you look at these smaller ideas, or small, they're not small, but simple. Yeah. Like the simple parts of life. And you look at like, oh, wow, like women weren't, women weren't considered to be socially capable of friend. Like, what must that have been like 2,000 years ago to just not be considered? Yeah. As
or even 300 years ago.
Or 300 years.
Sadly.
230. Yeah. But, so hopefully that's the part of the value in this too, is taking something simple like that. And when you want to think about the broader side of reality, when you're thinking about whatever.
Yeah. And just to sort of glom onto this, just because, again, in the beginning of this episode, we highlighted, an element of friendship that was, some of the more difficult side, the less idealized or sort of utopic side of friendship. I want to add on to that, just because, if we're thinking about, the inventions and the development of technology, one obvious case to look at right now is artificial intelligence and these chatbots, right? Like ChatGPT and Grok and similar things. Yep. And one question we could leave you with is, I'm gonna answer in a negative. I'm gonna say it's not possible. But one question to consider is, like, can you be friends with ChatGPT, with AI, AI in this way? I think as it stands now, and I hope things don't change so radically that my decision changes, but I don't think it's possible, just because this is not a consciousness, right? These large language models, right? That's just what ChatGPT and similar things are. They're large language models. They're really impressive at scouring all of this data and doing this really effective and impressive language prediction, but it's not an interlocutor. It's not a person.
It's not someone who has empathy or sympathy
or its own thoughts. It's basically a glorified, right? On your phone, if you've got an iPhone and you're in the texting app and you're typing a word and it gives you a predictive text, right? And it's usually pretty good at suggesting this might be your next word. Yes, it is, right? And that's right, to a more on a more sophisticated level. That's basically what these chatbots are. And so, you hear sort of increasingly that some people are turning to ChatGPT for companionship, sadly not knowing really that this technology is not capable of creating, right, a brand new kind of thought or critical idea. It is really just really good at making language predictions. And so that you find people turning to these chatbots for companionship, but not finding, right, what it is that they're looking for, or worse, turning to ChatGPT to use it as a therapist, which is,
I know, is
really,
very sad. Yeah.
It's really
the magic of therapy is in the conversation.
Absolutely.
It's in the
absolutely
the bringing out. And I love that you brought this up, because we've just went through millennia, and I will tell you, just from being around philosophers, this idea of how AI fits in society is, to me, it's a very unique time for me to get to be around people who think about society in these ways, like in very critical, like, how is this going to look? What's it going to look like for medicine? What's it going to look like for law? And there's on the ethical side, not just can it,
right,
but should it,
right?
And even if we should, as a society, are we signing up? What's the price?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, because there is a price.
Absolutely.
So
nothing is free.
Nothing is free. Yeah. If it's free, you are the product.
Yeah.
Just remember.
Yes.
If it's free, you're the
yeah. Yep.
And that's the society we live in, folks. So I just want to say thank you to you as the listener for listening to the series, or if this is the only episode you've listened to,
welcome. Go back.
Just go back.
Just go back to episode 1.
Listen to them all. But I mean, the value just for me in doing this, like, there's 1,000 things about this that make it valuable to me. And thank you to Kylie for gathering all this information with me.
Thank you to Dani for gathering this information and having these incredibly enriching conversations that we just hope to have inspired more curiosity and more questions on our listeners' part, and welcome you into the conversation, right? Like, that's really kind of the whole point, is to start a community of learners who are just curious little critters.
Yep.
Who want to come along and gather some things with us.
And thank you to Tyler Olson for doing our sound design with us and unlimited chats. Thank you to Samantha Fisher for our music. Thank you to Leaf Espelon for helping put together our social media. Please come and have conversations with us on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, X, I'm sure there's something that I'm missing.
Like, you could write us a letter.
You could write us a letter.
I'm not going to give you my address.
Several times we've mentioned carrier pigeons. Which is something that we could make ourselves available for.
Yep.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.